let's just redraw this all. So we've got a hill. We're coming down this mountain here. We're going to end up. We've got some small trees and a spruce. So let's just sketch this in. Sketch a little one here. A little fairly good sized one here, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll put a we'll leave a little space. Let's see, let's just do it the way I have it here. Leave a little space, make a smaller tree here, and we'll do a larger tree about right here. It's out in front, one behind, and maybe what we'll do is let's just do a nice sort of bold tree here. I tend to lean these. I don't want to really lean them so much. Let me just do something like this, pretty straight. Make that straight. Bow. Branches are coming down this way and then up. The same thing with this here. Let's just make it straighter. Sketch that there. And we have a let's say a tree here. Again, tend to lean it a little bit, so let's bring this over a bit. Okay, so we've got this good size branch coming off this way. I'm going to put one in anyway, one nice big one right there. Maybe a couple a little bit more saplings. I know I'm elaborating on this a little bit more, but let's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. The little one right here is 5, and then we'll go with the snow off. Now, what I need is a couple of people, and we need, the snow's going to come down, and maybe we need how about a branch? Maybe a little something coming up over here. And how about, I don't want to put a person here. we put with this size people, this tree makes it a little bit bigger. Let's see, he's pulling a sled. How about that? Pulling it into this way. All right. What I'm doing is I want these guys to, I want this all to be very soft. So we've got, well, we could, but let's not make it complicated. Let's make this a really nice, wonderful snow scene. What I'll do is bring this down. If we bring the snow down here, maybe we can do maybe a little branch down here, maybe a couple rocks, clusters going up this way. It's showing through. Alright, so that's my sketch. And if you remember, this is what I showed you guys. So if that's the case, let me move this up here so that we can all see it. And what I want to do is handle this a little bit differently, because I want to wet the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the back first on this, and then I'm going to wet the front. So I'm going to thoroughly saturate this. Let's try it. A little different. So let's take this brush here, take some water, and saturate both sides of this. This is how I'm going to handle this one. Nice and wet. Now what's going to happen is when I turn this over, it's going to hold the wetness against this board. So I probably won't need to put anything on there. And we're going to wet this side as well. Alright, so as you can see, the two wet sides will act to keep the paper flat. Now you don't need, well, I suppose that, I was going to say you guys don't need to paint the two sides wet, but it might not be a bad idea. If you've got a board that you can put it on, that's not a bad idea. But again, wetting this thoroughly to get the fibers nice and wet. We'll move this over and I'll start to let me get this lit. Let that set up for a bit. And then, okay. So what I've done is I've let this set up a little bit, let the fibers of the paper soak in, and I got most of the glisten off the page. Going to take my large 1-inch brush And we're going to end up, let's just watering in the sky a bit. And put a little bit more water up here. It's pretty wet, so I'm not too worried about it, but... And I'm going to take a little bit of cobalt blue. And I'm going to add a little bit of opera to it. And a little bit of my... There you go. A little bit of cobalt blue. Here's my cobalt. Okay. A little bit of my opera. And I'm going to combine that with a little bit of my burnt sienna. So I'm going to get it on the cool side. And we want to just sort of bring in the sky here a little bit. And I'm going to do these in vertical strokes, probably. A little bit warmer. I'm going to make some cool, very cool area here. I'm just going to bring in some a little bit stronger blue back right there. And sort of let this just go wherever it wants to go. And we're going to do some soft these trees that I have in here are going to be sort of background trees. I'm going to be putting them in a little darker later, but I'm just using a little bit more cobalt blue to handle some of these things. So what I just did is I washed in my sky a little with that mixture that I had right here, so it gets this purple side, and I picked up a little bit more cobalt blue to give me a background for one of these trees to set in blue. Now I'm going to really make that real dark at some point, but right now I want this all to sort of wash together. And what I really want to do is to create, if I can do this, I'm just wetting this a little bit here and there. And I'm going to let that all wash down together, because I want some this softness to. I want these vertical strokes, but I also want a bit of softness in the sky. And the water will help to create that. And you notice what's going to happen here is the water's starting to bring some of this down slowly. We're going to paint the trees on top of this, but we have to let that go a bit more. Just soften it up a bit. Okay. And the other thing I want to do before I get involved in all of this is I want to get some of this lower area here with a bit more snow. So what I used up here is cobalt blue with my mixture. So let me take cerulean blue now down here. I want to change up the blues a little bit. Take a little bit of cerulean blue. Okay, so using a different blue over here in the foreground. I'm going to use cerulean blue, and I'm going to take a little bit of opera, a little bit more, change it up a bit. Okay, get this nice purple color, a little cerulean blue. A little bit of opera, and go back to my little bit of burnt sienna in here too as well. Okay, so we got just a little bit of a different feel, but still on the cool side. And I want to create the snowy effect, adding a little bit more warmth to my snow, a little bit browner, I guess, if I have to get that feeling there. And just softly bringing this down. And what I really want to do is to make sure that I create this sort of nice light pattern in here. I don't want this to be super dark. Okay. Just going to bring that down a bit there. And maybe create a little bit more of a alizarin or an opera-ish value. Maybe a little bit in here to start reflecting that down a little bit there. The warmth, I'm bringing in some warmth. Right, so it's snow-like, the whole thing. So I've got my light pattern coming through here into this area here, and I want to just bring that out a little bit more. So we're just going to take just plain water, give me some softness there, and again, we're dealing with plain water. And adding, see, the brush is loaded, just the brush basically is, I'm putting in a lot of water in here into the brush, okay, and just creating a little bit of a path. Water. So we're going to allow that to just sort of dissipate, and I'll play around with this once it dries up a bit more, but you're going to have to let this set. Now this is going to dry a lot lighter than it is. It's going to end up, but we got our background. This is the whole thing. This is our underpainting, and I want to make some of this. I'm going to make a lot of this stuff much darker up here. And we'll work around all of that. But again, the idea behind this is to just let it set for a bit and dry out. And it's going to take a little bit of time to dry out. And I'm going to, actually, as this starts to dry, I'm going to start to probably create a little bit of a snowflake effect too in this. Now, as I'm waiting for this to softly dry out, spread, lighten. Again, I'm going to take a smaller brush here and see if I can just create a little bit of water. Add a little bit of water here and there. Because I want some light behind this tree. A couple of drops. Now this is still pretty wet. This is all wet, so I'm putting really water into a wet area, and it shouldn't blossom. I'm going to let it dry a little bit more and try to create a few blossoms. But notice how all of this stuff, this beautiful blue tone over here, blue to warmer tones in here and warmer tones in here, leaving some white in, very soft, warm and cool tones. Again, difference in the sky in here. You got a little bit of cerulean blue down in this area here with my mixture of opera and burnt sienna, and this is cobalt blue up here with, again, opera and burnt sienna. And if you don't have opera, it's fine. Use alizarin crimson, but just use just a hair, just a tad of alizarin crimson when you do this. And see, you'll notice that I've got a strip over here that's sort of right at the edge, but I'm not too worried about that because that's all going to get covered. What happens is that the water seeps in underneath and creates a ridge. That will dry out at some point and it's going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine. Let's clean this up a little bit more here. All right, looking good. There's also what's happening here with these mixtures of colors. These are mixing on the, actually they're mixing right on the paper. All of this stuff is mixing together. It's sort of flowing together, floating together, softening together. And you'll also notice that there's a granulated process that's happening. As this dries, there are little areas that turn whiter and lighter, and that's the paper. That's basically what's happening here is that the tooth of the paper is helping this to be able to create, helping us to create that just wonderful feeling that we want to have, this nice soft snow. We probably will lift out, now I think, if I remember correctly, let's see, let's do this here. I'm going to just take my water, a little bit of tissue, because we've got a couple of things going on here. I have a rock that's right here. So let's just, as this dries, and take this and wet. What I'm doing is I'm taking the brush right here, wetting the brush, taking the water out of the brush, and come in here and just soften this up a bit here. All right? That's a little bit of, there's a little stone, a little rock that's going to be right here. And we're going to do the same thing with a small rock that's right here. Okay. And maybe one up here. A little bit of water. And we also have, which we need to get back here, we have a few people. So let's do this. Let's take a little bit of water and wash this out here. We got a person that's right here. And we got a person that's probably right here. There they are. Right, and maybe we'll put a little guy over here. We got a couple of people here, one here and one here. All right, so with a little bit of water in there, that'll also feather that area up a bit. Taking a little bit of this wonderful value here. I'm adding, what I'm doing is I'm coming in here with my wet paint, picking up a little bit of my lavender, making it a little thicker. My lavender and along with my burnt sienna, which creates this brown gray. Give you an idea right here, right? A little bit of my lavender. Now you can use, if you don't have lavender, you can use cerulean blue because it'll do the same thing. All right. So you see how that gray has to be. It's a very light gray, very warmer gray. Gray's a neutral tone, remember. So, what side is shadow? Well, we'll have to just pick a side. So let's just say we're going to do something like this. Add a little bit of this and let it, we'll just add a couple of little things in here and in there and let it spread around a bit. We'll fix that in a bit. it's going to spread. Still a little bit on the wet side. That's going to happen all up here too. So if I start my tree, okay, let me take this brush, which is my, it's a number 18, but it's basically a flat brush. Basically what it is it's about a half inch. All right, here's my half inch, here's my 1 inch. Okay. And I'm going to start to deepen the value. Now when I want to deepen the value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water, again, wet the brush. I'm going to start to pick up a deeper value now. Okay, so what I just did is I put a little bit of a value in here, small value. We're going to turn this into a rock soon. Turn these into a rock soon. But let's get back to the tree and the trees that we got to put in here. So we're going to start to do some darker values. So let's pick up my cobalt blue in fairly. Now the cobalt blue that I'm going to put in is fairly substantial in terms of the. It's going to be very buttery, and I'm going to do that with a little bit of my burnt sienna. I'm mixing that, so I'm going to get this sort of cool green. Okay, see this? See how buttery that is? Okay, so if I put this, so if I start here and I start to sort of go back and forth, it's a winter, this is going to pretty much stay where it's at. It's still a little bit on the wet side because I'm putting all of this paint, which is very heavily pigmented and buttery in terms of its consistency, in here, and it's going to pretty much stay where I put it. All right, now I'm going to leave space. See this white space over here? I'm going to leave that so it's going to be indicative of snow. So the boughs of the tree it looks like it has some snow on it. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre and in my tree, so I'm going to turn it a little bit on the browner side. And do the same thing. Okay, and I'm just arbitrarily, this is spacing that is not symmetrical spacing. It's spacing that is asymmetrical. Okay, but you notice the difference. This has a tendency to be a little bit more olive in its feel, olive colored in its feel. I'm going to change this up a little bit and put some of that in there too. All right, and because it's still, I'm working into a wet paper, but I'm working with a lot of pigment. It's going to spread, and it's going to spread a little bit here and there, and it's going to spread almost like pine needles. That's the most. It's very interesting what happens here. All right, so here we'll put a little one right here. I'll give you an example. Okay, a little bush, little tree there, maybe one here. Okay, so if I come in here and I use maybe instead of my cobalt blue, if I add my cerulean blue to it, we'll go over here and we're going to just again do the same thing. Now this is dark. What I'm trying to do is to create the illusion of some interesting trees that are over here. And I'm not going to do too many of them. I want to keep them relatively simple in terms of its shape. All right, because it's a snow feel. I want that snowy feel to it. And the variation, that is the change up in color from what I have over here, which is more yellow ochre and more brownish, to this being more bluish, this being more greenish. I've changed it up a bit here and there so that you get a variation. I think I have a little tree here too as well. So let's just come in here and do this. All right, and we'll make this one a little taller. All right, so you see how it's spreading? It's not a hard line. We're not dealing with a hard line on that. We're dealing with a soft look. It's extremely important to do that. All right, I'm working with wet paper. Paper that's saturated. Remember, from the back, notice how all of this stuff is sort of softly dissipating here and there. What we're creating is just a general overall soft feeling throughout this painting. That's what we're trying to do anyway, is create a soft feel throughout it. I want to also take advantage of this by adding a couple of saplings, a couple of, now these are conifer type trees, they're spruce trees. I want to add some broadleaf type trees. And with broadleaf type trees in the wintertime, you're not going to have any leaves on those trees. So we can use a thin brush, a flat brush, or we can use, I've got a dagger here, we'll try this one. And we're going to come in here and we're going to end up with a little bit more burnt sienna. And I'm going to add a little bit of red to that. I want it dark though, red, and then I'm going to add a little bit of my French ultramarine blue. Okay, so it's going to be a purplish, reddish sort of overall color, and I'm going to end up, I want to end up starting at the, I'm going to start here at the top and come down and skip it. Okay, and I'm going to come down at the bottom, and it's going to be lighter at the bottom. Not too much lighter, but I'll add some yellow ochre at the bottom. And this is very heavy, it's all pigment. And I'm leaving a little bit of white here and there because I'm just trying to give you the feeling or that there's snow on the side of that tree. All right, and that's one. Maybe we'll do a little one here. I don't know. What do we want to do? One major one right there. Let's see. Maybe we'll do one here. Make it light. Light there. Maybe we'll do one. Something like this. And we'll do some small ones with the rigger, with a smaller brush. So we'll put the smaller ones back away. So in order to do that, we're going to end up having to do a little bit more bluer trees. Let's say right here we got make these soft. We're going to end up doing some real soft branches in here. I'm going to be able to come across this way and down. And we got a broken branch that's there. Very thin. Okay. How about a little dark area? Let's do this so I don't ruin my painting. Okay. Make this nice and dark. Maybe I'll change it up a little bit. Make it actually even redder. How about that? And some can be any color. What's the difference? Okay. Dark at the top. Now this is a no-no. You don't want to do that. Notice what I did here? I did this and this branch here and this branch here. I'm going to pull this one down here a little bit more. And maybe I can erase that. Get rid of that. I don't know. And we're actually hiding this tree behind here. Okay, so we got a couple of broadleaf style trees that are in here. And maybe might help it a little bit more. And we'll just do a real soft. Little stuff over there, little stubbles here and there. Okay, so other than actually doing a little bit of make this a little bit more interesting, maybe a little bit. Let's see if we can get some water in here to soften some of these. Now that should be dry enough so that it'll form, when I put that water in there, it's going to actually form a blossom, which a control blossom, so I'm adding water to give you the impression that when that dries, it should give us the impression of some leafy stuff, some branches and things like that, lighter areas. So we've got this wonderful thing happening over here now. This is great. We want to make, I'm going to add a little bit of dark, a little bit more dark by taking just French ultramarine blue and adding it right in here. Just nice and straight. There you go. Okay, let it go. I don't want to, am I putting my head in there? I'm sorry if I am. All right, now that's that there, and then this is going to end up with a little bit of water. What we need to do here is we need to ground these trees. We need to make them part of the landscape here. We're just going to bring them in so that they don't look like they're... There you go. You want them grounded. You want them to make sure that they're in the ground. Okay. And we've got these two, and then this big space here. We could probably put a little sapling here. Just to create a little bit more interest. Okay. Now again, we have some people that we lost. We did the same thing that we did before. We lost the ability to see those people, so we're going to end up getting it back. So let's come in here and just soften this up a bit more with a little bit of water and see what we did with our people. There they are. So we'll just put the people in there and then build around it. But again, if I leave this, I'm just going to leave this alone. These are just beautiful little trees that are there, and I'm just adding a little bit of warmth here and there to this rock. A little warmth to that rock. And maybe a twig. We're going to have a couple of these twigs coming down to the ground here. Let's see if I can do that. And we'll have to ground these as well too. So if I come down here and I make this darker actually, and I'm wondering if we should just, let's see it. Well, hopefully we'll do this. Let's see what happens. I'll put a branch in here under the snow. Laying on the ground. Make it nice and soft. Okay, so if I put that in there, it helps this come down this way a little bit more. But I also have to do something here. I have to come back and take a little bit of water and soften that into the snow a bit more. And that's this also. I'm not sure that that works. We need a shadow. Okay. Let's get a clean tissue and sort of take some of this out. A little bit of nice clear water. Here's clear water. Okay. Throw a couple of those branches on the ground. Okay, so we've got a couple of trees up there. This happening down here. Let me get some white, nice clean water here for a second. I'm just taking and feathering some of this stuff. Just water, just clear water. And let it go. Now, I need to scratch out I'm taking, you can do this with a knife, or you can do this with the back of a brush, very simple, similar to that there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bark and scratch out some of the trunk area here and there. And the same with this. Okay. A couple of scratches, a couple of scrapes, and a couple of scrapes here, there, maybe there. A little heavier there, side. And we're going to let it dry. And once it's dry, then I'm going to add a couple of small things to it, but essentially this is a real wet into wet watercolor. Very softly done. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Of course I forgot to do it. I've been talking about the people. Let's put the people in there. Totally forgot about them. Gee whiz. My gosh. So, best way we can do the people is to just take a little small brush. What I'm doing is I'm using these wonderful brushes that I got from Dynasty. They're synthetic brushes, some of the best synthetic brushes that I've used. And they don't use natural hair brushes. They make their brushes that are faux natural hair. They simulate or emulate, I suppose, the natural hair brush. And it just seems to be a nice brush. It takes the paint well, holds water beautifully, by the way. They just, you know, designed, watercolor brushes are designed to hold water in the hairs so that you can continue to use them time after time without having to go back in and, you know, oil brushes, for instance, like this, are designed to take paint and put it at the end of the brush and apply it to the paint and the canvas. But watercolor brushes are designed to actually physically hold the water. These won't hold water. Now these are good for some other things. I mean, I can take something like this, for instance, and I can create some soft areas by scraping a little bit. But predominantly what happens is that a watercolor brush is designed to hold water. That's very important. So what did I want to do here? Put the people in. Okay. So let's make my person let's put head of the person right here. Oh. Bring them down. One there, and maybe one here. I'm using a lot of pigment to do this. Still a little on the wet side. We'll fix those guys up soon enough. Maybe a little guy here. Okay, so we're going to let that set. Let it actually get in there and dry out. Oh yeah, he was pulling a sled if I remember correctly. Don't know if that'll do it. Well, let's see. Let's just let it go. Gotta let this thing dry out. So we'll be back to finish it up. But notice, basically, what I'm really doing here is I'm just only dealing with this area up here. I want to get some. What I do, actually, you know what I want to do, what I haven't done, and I can do this right now. So let's get in here and make, I lost a lot of this dark. You notice what's happening is that a lot of the real dark area that I wanted to maintain, a real super dark area, what's happening is that a lot of it is going by the wayside, because as it's been drying, it's been lightening, getting lighter. Not lightening, but sort of getting a lot lighter. Okay, so my trees have got to have some dark variety to it too, or else they're just not going to work. Right, and usually they're darker. Let's get some darker down. There you go. That'll work. You need to make these nice and vibrant, because this is where I want you to look. That seems to be a little bit better. Nice and strong up there, super strong up there. Okay. How's that? Little small things. Alright, let's see where that goes. Okay? Let me just shut this down and just see where it goes. Keep my fingers out of there. I'm going to turn the paper now, certainly just to make it easier for me to draw these lines. Maybe they're hauling some logs, who knows. Little nothings, little just make that the side of that house. Okay. And I want to add, no, I could just, let's just do something here. What I'm looking to do is to try to add a little bit more opaque areas here and there, just to create that nice feeling of snow. This is dry brush, and what I'm doing is just creating the needles on that tree. Here and there. As an example, let's take a branch. You know, and just the idea is to help it along a bit. And you don't want to put them everywhere. All right. Okay. Maybe a couple of little highlights, bright spots. And with a little bit of touch here and there, helps to make it Okay. And I'm going to make this nice and bright. Right there. There you go. Make them bright. I think that's it. I think I'm going to call this a painting. So there's the final. And that's it. Thank you for being with me, and let's get into this happy painting kind of thing. Remember, we're all about painting for pleasure. Thanks. Bye-bye.